The house looked the same. Same white shutters, same creaky porch swing, same soft jazz humming from the corner speaker in the dining room, like it had every Thanksgiving since I was 12. My name is Olivia Greene. I'm 24, a pre-med student at Temple University, and this year, I wasn't even sure if I should come home, but I did. Maybe out of obligation, maybe out of hope, maybe just to see if anything had changed. Spoiler, it hadn't. My mom, Karen Greene, made her usual roasted squash and honey-glazed carrots. My dad, Michael Greene, a retired surgeon, carved the turkey with the same quiet precision he once used in operating rooms. My sister, Camille, was late, as always. But the air felt off. Not cold exactly, just still, like everyone was pretending something wasn't there. We sat around the polished oak table, the silverware too clean, the napkins folded too carefully. I reached for the mashed potatoes when Dad looked up and asked me, "So, is the 2,000 a month helping?" My fork froze halfway to my plate. "What money?" I asked. The silence that followed was louder than anything I'd heard in years. Even the jazz seemed to vanish. Dad's smile faded. He looked at Mom. She kept her eyes on the butternut squash. I don't understand," I whispered. "What money?" He turned back to me, brow furrowed. "You haven't been getting the transfers?" I shook my head. Mom dabbed her lips with a napkin, then set it down with too much care. I thought it would be better used elsewhere." "Better used?" Dad repeated. His voice wasn't angry, yet, just stunned. "You told me you'd handle the transfers." "I did," she said. "To whom, Karen?" he asked. His voice cracked. "Because it wasn't for Olivia." There was a long pause. Mom's voice was too calm when it came. "Camille's program is more expensive. She needs it more. You know how hard fashion is. Competitive, unforgiving. And Olivia's just supposed to." "What? Get by?" Dad was rising now, hands clenched at his sides. I sat frozen. "I asked once," I said quietly. "Back in August. You said there wasn't anything left, after tuition." Dad turned fully toward her now. "Since August?" She nodded. "Since she started her fashion residency in LA. He turned to me. "Olivia, you've had nothing? No support?" I shook my head. "I've been working nights, tutoring, bar shifts, skipping meals." "Don't do this here," Mom said. Her voice clipped. "It's Thanksgiving." But Dad wasn't listening to her. He was looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time in a very long time. Something shifted in his face, a crack in the perfect calm he'd always stood. My chest felt too tight. The hallway felt too quiet, too familiar. I stepped outside, pulling the cloak tight. The fall air chilled. Inside, I knew the jazz had resumed. The avoidance. But I couldn't pretend it. My feet moved down the block, past neighbors' homes, glowing holiday warmth. None of it felt real. What felt real was the taste of instant ramen I'd had for dinner 4 nights straight, the protein bar I'd split across lunch and dinner, the $3 sneakers from a thrift store that I'd stapled back together because the soles gave out. The Tuesday night I fainted on a shift at the bar and woke up under fluorescent lights with an IV in my arm. "Do you have anyone to call?" the ER nurse had asked. I said no, and I meant it. The hospital was cold, but not as cold as the silence that followed. They kept me for observation overnight, low blood sugar, dehydration, exhaustion. I stared at the blank ceiling until morning. My manager told me he'd called my parents after the ambulance came. Left messages. They didn't answer, he said. Figured they'd show. They didn't. 2 days later, my lab partner Theo showed up. He wasn't family, wasn't even a close friend, just the guy who shared notes and once lent me his extra goggles in the chem lab. He showed up with a bag of groceries and a foil pan of baked ziti. "I didn't tell you my address," I said, confused. "You didn't have to," he replied, setting the bag down gently. "Someone in our class mentioned the ER. I asked around." He didn't hover, just handed me a plate and sat across from me in silence. I took a bite and almost cried. That night, I slept for 12 hours straight. When I woke, I had 2 texts from my mom. "Glad you're doing okay. Can you send Camille that skincare brand you like? Don't forget to eat." I deleted them both. A few days later, Camille posted a video. Rooftop brunch in Los Angeles. Gold-rimmed glasses, designer coat. The caption read, "No better way to start the day. Thanks, Mom." I watched it 3 times, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't not. That same week, I emailed Mom to ask for help buying a new anatomy atlas. Mine was water damaged, the pages falling from overuse, and 1 spilled cup of vending machine coffee. She replied, "That's a luxury, Olivia. You'll have to make do." The next day, Camille posted a story of her new Balenciaga boots with the caption, "Thanks to my amazing mom for always supporting the dream." I stopped being angry, just stopped feeling much at all. It was like something inside me quietly shut off, the part that tried to make sense of the imbalance, the part that believed, even naively, that I was seen. I picked up my phone and opened my banking app. No transfers. Nothing. That's when I called Camille. She picked up on the second ring. "Olivia! Wow! You never call. Everything okay?" "Yeah," I lied. "Just wanted to check in." "Oh my God, I've been meaning to tell you about the Pasadena shoot. It was a mess. The stylist brought alpaca coats in 70-degree weather." I let her ramble. At some point, I asked, "How do you afford it all? LA isn't cheap." She laughed. "Oh, Mom wires me $3,500 a month. More if I have events." My mouth went dry. "She says it's investing in the dream," Camille added. "You know, Mom, she gets it." "Right," I murmured. "She gets it." When we hung up, I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I opened my laptop and booked a flight to Chicago, 2 layovers, 6-hour delay. Didn't matter. I had to see them, face them. I packed my bag with quiet hands and a stiff back. I didn't rehearse what I'd say. I just knew I wasn't coming back the same. The next day, I sat in our kitchen in Chicago, the same one where I'd done homework under the window, spelling tests taped to the fridge. Mom had made lentil soup and dry chicken salad, the kind of meal that pretends to be healthy but tastes like an obligation. Dad was quiet, glancing at me between bites. "You've lost weight?" he said. I shrugged. "I guess." "Are you okay?" "Define okay." He frowned. "What do you usually eat?" "Instant noodles, discounted sandwiches, leftovers if I'm lucky." His fork clattered. "The 2,000 wasn't covering enough?" I stared at him. "There were no transfers, Dad, not one." His face went pale. "Karen?" He turned to her, voice low. She didn't look up. "I've been sending it to Camille," she said flatly. "She needs it more." Dad stood. "You told me you were sending it to Olivia." "I thought she was okay. She's always okay." His voice sharpened. "And Camille isn't? Because she's in fashion?" "She has to maintain a certain image. That industry is brutal, you know that." And Olivia? His voice was rising now. She doesn't need to eat, to study, to sleep? I'm not saying she doesn't need help, Mom said, but Olivia's strong. She always figures it out. He turned to me again. This time his face looked older, ashamed. I thought you were fine. I was surviving, I said. That's not the same thing. He sank into his chair like the weight of everything had finally settled. I came here for answers, I said. Didn't expect them to be so simple. I left the table. That night, I lay awake in my childhood room, staring at the ceiling. The posters were gone. The walls were plain. The silence felt like an accusation. I didn't hear the knock at first, then the door creaked open. It was Dad. I couldn't sleep, he said, stepping inside. I keep going over it. She told me she was sending it every month. I believed her. I didn't reply. He sat on the edge of my bed. Remember when Camille got her car? I nodded. You told me I'd get one next year. He rubbed his face. She said you didn't mind. I cried for a week. His eyes tightened. This summer, you said you didn't want to go to that medical camp. Said you'd rather stay home. She told me we couldn't afford it. Camille went to Italy. He exhaled. I should have asked more questions. She made it easy not to, I said. She always said you were independent, that you didn't need much. I was, I replied, but I shouldn't have had to be. He didn't say anything, just nodded. Downstairs, they were arguing again. Voices sharp, words like betrayal and loyalty are slicing through the air. I closed my eyes. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It hadn't been for a very long time. The next morning, I found Dad in his study, glasses low on his nose, staring at his laptop like it had just confessed something unforgivable. He looked up when I walked in. Olivia, he said, we need to talk. I stood there quietly, bracing. I need you to know, he began. I didn't just believe your mother. I gave her access. To what? The trust, he said. The one we set up when you and Camille were kids. It was supposed to be split evenly. Half for you, half for her. I thought it was locked until you both turned 25. My stomach dropped. And? He rubbed his temples. She's been diverting funds into a separate account, in Camille's name only. How much? His voice cracked. 250,000 so far. I didn't say anything, just nodded, my lips tight. I've already called the attorney, he added. We're starting the process to reverse the transfers. It'll take time, but I'm not letting this slide. I walked out of his office without a word. I didn't trust my voice not to shake. That night, their voices rose again, only louder this time, sharper. You didn't even ask me, Dad shouted. That money was for both our daughters. She needs it more, Mom snapped. I did what was best for her. Not for us, not for Olivia. Hearing my name like that, defended, not dismissed, sent a rush through me. I stood at the top of the stairs, invisible in the shadows. I trusted you, he said again, his voice raw. And you stole from our child. I turned away before I could hear her response. I already knew what it would sound like. 2 days later, Camille called. Her voice was tight, clipped at the edges. Mom told me I'm only getting 1,000 a month now. Is that true? Yeah, I said. Dad's handling finances now. She exhaled sharply. I can't live on that. Rent, classes, materials. I know. There was silence. She was waiting for me to offer something. I didn't. Do you think this is fair? She asked. I paused. I think it's overdue. She hung up. That night, I caught Mom in the kitchen, slipping cash into a blank envelope. She didn't see me standing in the hallway. Later, Dad did. He didn't yell. He just stood there, across from her at the counter, and said, "I can't do this anymore." She stared at him, blinking like she didn't understand. I was trying to protect her. He didn't flinch. And who was protecting Olivia? "Iris is fine," she said. "She's always been fine." He looked exhausted. "You keep saying that like it justifies everything." "I just wanted the best for Camille." "And what did Olivia get?" he asked. She didn't answer. The next morning, he called the lawyer again. By the end of the week, he had filed for legal separation. The house changed after that. Not all at once. But the silence between rooms grew heavier, more honest, like something cracked and air finally got in. Mom still cooked, still folding laundry, but she moved like she was walking underwater. She didn't talk to me, not really, just short phrases, avoiding eye contact. I stayed for 2 more nights. On the third day, I packed my bag. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, like she wanted to say something, but didn't. Back in Philadelphia, things were different. I dropped 2 shifts at the bar, kept weekends, still tutored, because I liked explaining things, the clarity of it, the quiet. And I ate. I slept. I studied. My grades climbed, not because I got smarter, but because I could finally breathe. I bought myself new sneakers, not fancy, just intact. No staples holding them together. They felt like proof of effort, of dignity. Camille started texting more. At first, I ignored her, but slowly I replied. She sent me photos of outfits she'd styled. Boutique work, not couture. "They're not designer," she wrote once, "but I like them more. They feel like mine." I didn't know what to say, so I just typed, "I'm glad." One night, she called without warning. Her voice was smaller than usual. "I think I finally see it now." "See what?" "What does it cost you? All of it." There was a pause, longer than a breath. "I didn't want to believe it," she continued, "because if I did, I'd have to admit that Mom made it easier for me, and that meant she made it harder for you." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. "I don't need you to feel guilty," I said. "Just don't pretend it was fair." "I won't." We sat in silence for a while. I heard the soft clink of glass on her end, probably tea, not wine. Camille hated alcohol. "You going home for the holidays?" she asked. "Not sure." "Dad's going. I am too." I hesitated. "Maybe," she added, "we could go together." I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. It's been a year since that Thanksgiving dinner. I'm still in Philadelphia, still in school, but everything feels steadier now. My life isn't extravagant, but it's mine. I sleep, I eat, I study without constantly checking the clock, without rationing Tylenol or protein bars. My professors have noticed the change, so have I. Camille is still in Los Angeles, but she's different too. She works part-time at a boutique that promotes sustainable fashion. No more gold-rimmed cocktails or Dior tags. She sends me photos sometimes, not of champagne or brunch plates, but of sketches, fabric swatches, notes and pencil margins. Her messages are more thoughtful now, less curated. "Made this from leftover silk," she texted once. "It's not perfect, but I finally feel like I earned it." I replied with a thumbs up, then added, "Proud of you," and I meant it. Mom and we don't speak often. When we do, it's polite, careful, like walking across a frozen pond and hoping the ice doesn't crack. She works at Home Goods now, says it's temporary. I don't ask more. Dad, though, he calls every week, sometimes about school, sometimes about books. sometimes for no reason at all. When he visits, he brings groceries and sits on the floor with me while I talk about cadavers and case studies like they're on bedtime stories. He listens, not like he's checking off boxes, but like time isn't something he's rationing anymore. One chilly evening, Camille called just as I was leaving the library. "I've been thinking about going back," she said. "To the house?" "To see Mom," she clarified. I didn't say anything. "Not for her," she added, voice gentle. "Just to do it right this time." There was a long pause. She didn't try to fill it. I nodded before I even realized I'd done it. "Okay," I said. "Let's go." Christmas came with no grand gestures, just an early flight, 2 carry-ons, and a quiet knock on a door that once held every answer I never got. Camille and Dad went in first. I followed. Mom answered in a sweater I didn't recognize. Plain, slightly worn. Her hair had more gray than last year. Her smile was faint, didn't quite reach her eyes. We sat around the same oak table, the one where everything had cracked open last year. The food was simple: roasted vegetables, a dry turkey, Dad overcooked, store-bought pie. No one brought up the past, but no one pretended it hadn't happened either. That, I think, was the win. We passed dishes without tension. Camille complimented the stuffing. Dad asked about my brioche project. Mom said she was still getting used to retail hours. Honest. Not warm, but honest. Later that night, I unpacked in my old room. It felt smaller somehow, maybe because I was finally breathing in my skin. I pulled a plain white envelope from my backpack, a printed tuition receipt. I placed it in the drawer beside a folded note Dad had written a few months back. "This is yours, not because you earned it, but because I finally saw you." I read it again before closing the drawer. For a long time, I believed love had to be earned. That silence was strength. That being the one who managed meant being the one who never asked. I don't believe that anymore. Camille knocked on my door just before bed. She didn't come in, just leaned against the doorframe, her voice soft. "Thanks for coming back," she said. I nodded. "Thanks for asking." "I was scared it would be like last year." "It's not," I said. She didn't move for a while. Then, "Do you think she regrets it?" "I think she remembers it differently." "Yeah," Camille whispered. "That sounds like her." "She tried to make it up to you, you know." "I know," Camille replied. "But that's the thing. I don't want to be made up for. I just want to be." I looked at her. Looked. She wasn't the golden girl in filtered sunlight anymore. She looked tired, real, and something in her posture, quiet, hesitant, told me she meant it. "Me too," I said. That night I fell asleep without the weight pressing on my chest, without counting every minute like a punishment. Not everything was fixed. Not everything would be. But something had shifted. Something had begun. The next morning, the house smelled like coffee and cinnamon. Not the artificial kind from candles, but real, from a half-open bag next to the old coffee maker. Mom was already in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, stirring oatmeal. She glanced up when I walked in, surprised. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I said. "Too quiet." She nodded, almost smiled, then went back to stirring. The silence between us felt more like a hallway now than a wall. You could walk through it if you wanted, if you dared. I sat at the counter. She slid a bowl in front of me. "Still like brown sugar?" "Yeah." She handed me the jar. We didn't talk about the past, not directly, but as I ate, I watched her move, slower now, more careful. Not with food, but with words, like someone trying to learn a language they once thought they didn't need. "I heard you got a scholarship." she said after a while. Yeah, partial. It helps. She nodded. I'm glad. The words weren't enough, but they were something. Later, as we were packing to leave, Dad pulled me aside. I looked at the trust, he said. It's fully reinstated. The attorney made sure. You'll have full access next year when you graduate. I nodded. Thank you. I hate that I didn't ask. Camille waited by the car. When she saw me, she raised an eyebrow. We good? As good as we can be, he said. Drive to the airport. There was music. Something soft, older. Something Mom used to hum when she folded laundry. When we got out, Camille pulled me into a quick hug. We'll call more? Yeah, I said. Let's mean it this time. She smiled, not wide, but real. Back in Philly, the days passed without panic. I found a rhythm, studied at the library most afternoons, worked weekends at the tutoring center, and made time to walk in the cold and notice the way sunlight slanted against old brick buildings. One evening, I got a letter, handwritten. Dad? Olivia, sometimes love isn't loud. Sometimes it's late. But late doesn't mean gone. Thank you for not closing the door. I kept that letter on my desk, not because I needed it to remember, but because I needed the space it left behind to stay open. Camille and I text more now. It wasn't constant, but it was consistent. A photo of a dress, a recipe, a meme about student loans. One night she called. Mom asked if we'd come back again this Christmas. Did she? Yeah. Said she'd make pecan pie. I didn't answer right away. Only if you want, Camille added. I thought about the house, about the table, about the way Dad looked at me across mashed potatoes and asked if the money helped, about how my hands had shaken as I whispered, What money? But I also thought about the bowl of oatmeal, the brown sugar, the way silence had become something we could walk through. Maybe, I said. We'll see. That night, I studied until midnight, then made myself a bowl of real food, watched a movie I liked, didn't flinch when my phone buzzed. Things weren't perfect. They weren't supposed to be. But for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Seen. Not because I broke down, but because I stopped pretending I didn't need anything. Some stories don't end with healing. They begin with it. Word count, 1,101. Summary, 300 words. Olivia Greene spent years quietly surviving, juggling classes, jobs, hunger, and silence. She never asked for much, believing strength meant doing it alone. But everything shattered the night her father casually asked if the money had helped, and she answered with 3 words that unraveled the illusion. What money? That moment cracked open years of favoritism, secrecy, and neglect. Her mother had quietly funneled support to her sister Camille, convinced Olivia was strong enough to endure on her own. The truth was cruel in its simplicity. Her pain hadn't been seen because it hadn't been loud. As her father uncovered the betrayal, financial and emotional, he took a stand. He rebalanced the trust, filed for separation, and for the first time in Olivia's life, she defended her instead of assuming she was fine. Camille changed too. The golden girl of filtered brunch photos slowly stepped into reality, acknowledging the cost of being favored. And while forgiveness wasn't immediate, a thread of understanding began to grow between the sisters, built on quiet calls, honest questions, and a willingness to try again. Their mother remained distant, her regret buried beneath layers of pride and detachment. But there were small signs: an oatmeal breakfast, a sweater less polished, a silence less defensive. Olivia didn't ask for an apology. She didn't need grand gestures. What she needed was to stop disappearing. And that's exactly what she did. Because healing doesn't always look like reconciliation. Sometimes, it's just a hot meal, a steady breath, a call returned, a tuition paid not in guilt, but in recognition. Some families break and stay broken. Others fracture and, if they're lucky, begin again. Not where they left off, but somewhere real. And Olivia? She finally believed she deserved that much.